Good afternoon, everybody. Jenny and I were waiting with bated breath to see if we actually went live when I pressed live. Everything seems to be a little bit on the challenging side today. The joys of live broadcasting. I was about to get started and then I had to do a complete restart on my computer, which was very badly timed. But then that's the joy of doing this by the seat of our pants, isn't it, Jenny?
There's nothing quite like live to keep you on your toes, is there?
Yes, absolutely. And when it doesn't go to plan, we just go with the flow. Anyway, so we're here. Very welcome to anyone who is listening. And how are you, Jenny? How's things?
I'm good, thank you. It's a bit cooler here today, although I like it warm. But it's because the schools have broken up. Of course, the weather has taken a dip, hasn't
Of
it?
course it
So the
has.
sunshine has gone. It's kind of it's kind of cloudy, but it's not raining. And so I am fresh from doing accounting type things this morning. So I'm looking forward for a bit of a cheer up because it's not my favourite way of spending a morning, I have to say. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Fabulous. Likewise, it's school broke up yesterday here for us, so my two are currently in the living room, lounging on the sofa, watching some nonsense or other on the TV. But yes, it feels kind of crazy that we've finally actually got to this point of the end of term. It's been a bit of a ground rush or groundswell towards the end of term, so it's nice to finally be there. Although now the juggle starts. Business and summer holidays and entertaining the kids. But that kind of brings me to my first question, really, because in our particular situation, we've got one navigating the transition from junior school up to secondary in September, and our eldest is navigating having finished GCSEs and moving on to sixth form. So there's transitions for both of them there, you know, even for the eldest, even though she's staying at the same place to go to their sixth form, she now doesn't have to wear uniform, has more freedom, can come and go a bit more. So there's all sorts of things tied up in all of that for both of them, really. So I just wondered if you have any top tips for navigating transitions, perhaps thinking particularly about in education. However, I'm sure they can apply to absolutely anything in terms of transitions.
Well, it won't surprise you to know that I do.
Funny that.
Because there are so many transitions in life, aren't there?
Yeah.
We go through them all the time, and some of them are huge ones. Some of them we think they're small, and then they turn out to be big. And in my experience, transitions are one of the times when we are most at risk
Yeah.
of the dreaded comparisonitis virus
Yeah.
because it's new. Not the virus, the transition, because we're entering a new chapter, a new phase. We often have a little dip in confidence because we don't know what's going to happen. We maybe have an idea, and of course, what we start to do is then to look at everybody else who has either recently been in that position or is much more experienced than us, and it can get very noisy, can't it, when you suddenly
Yeah.
start listening to lots of other people's experiences. And while it's really good to have an understanding of what other people have gone through because you can learn from it, it's also potentially completely overwhelming, and you start to think, oh well, they've made it really easy, they just swanned their way through. And of course, when we're the other side of the transition, sometimes we forget how tricky it felt when we were this side of it. So people will say, oh, it's a piece of cake, don't worry about it. There's no worry, don't worry about it, it'll be fine, it'll all be fine. And of course it will all be fine.
Yes.
Mostly, but often we either oversimplify, and sometimes it's quite nice to ask the person who is in that transition what it is that they're worried about. What is it? Is it that they won't know people? Is it that they might get mine was always getting lost because geography is not a strong point. It's like, oh, what if I can't find the classroom? What if I don't know where to go? Doesn't matter whether it's university, and lots of, I think that the transition from sort of GCSE to sixth form is one of the biggest transitions you ever make.
Yeah.
And it's a really big leap, because you go from, it's not just the next, it's a whole different phase, isn't it? And the way we teach A levels is very different. So all of a sudden you're expected to have critical thinking skills, opinions of your own that you can back up, much more emphasis on what you think, what the way you see the world, which is fabulous. But it's a huge jump from going, and I don't want to offend any teachers, so I don't mean this in the way that it, but you're not just reading a book and then paraphrasing it in your own words or telling them what you can remember. This is a whole different ball game, and I think I certainly found it really, really tricky to transition from GCSEs or to A levels. It was a really big leap, and part of that was the change in the way of teaching. And I don't think you ever, because by the time, if you choose to go to university or further education or whatever it is, you've kind of done the subsequent leaps are smaller. This was a biggie, and I think we sometimes underestimate it, and we don't have conversations about it. So for anybody going through transition, I would say, yes, have a chat with people, but have a think yourself about what are the things that are worrying you or that you're curious about, maybe not worried, but curious about what happens if this happens. What if I can't find my way? Who do I go to help? How do I navigate A, B, or C? So be curious, have some really good questions, and then choose who you talk to.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think,
sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's fear of the unknown is a huge part of it, isn't it? So having a think, a bit of time in introspection, like you've just said, asking yourself, what are you afraid of? What do you want from it? Asking yourself all the things that are going on, and then choosing the right people. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I completely agree, perhaps unsurprisingly, because I think the sense of feeling that you're on your own going through it is a real issue in any transition. And that shared experience of going through it with people who are also experiencing it at the same time, who are also a bit scared, worried what the future holds because they don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I often, this kind of thing, I think back to becoming a mum, because you can't really nothing can ever really prepare you for that. You can read all the books you like, listen to all the experts you like, but it's not till you actually do it that you then understand, oh, right, okay, so everything really has changed now, and the enormity of it. And whilst transition through the education system might not be quite the same as that, it's, for me, it's that thing of, find out what you can, but also go with the flow of it, because you will learn and build on your experiences through going through that process, and not trying to avoid the process or deny that it's happening or, anything like that. Actually going with it and being open to accepting what's going to come is really important. But of course, when that's balanced against a bit of fear, that can be, difficult to balance, difficult to navigate, particularly at a young age, because you don't have perhaps the life experience to back it up with, or have a similar experience already that that might help. So it's definitely an interesting one, isn't it?
I think also when you listen to lots of other people, it's also really important, because something you just is that trust your instinct, trust your gut, trust yourself, because actually it doesn't matter whether it's transitioning, you know, years at school, transitioning to motherhood, the first time you leave home, all of those things, you know what works for you.
Yeah.
And it might not be. So sometimes when you hear lots of other people and you think, oh, that doesn't sit quite right with me, my invitation is to actually trust your instinct. And I think so often we don't, because
Yeah.
we get, oh, well, I'm 15, so what are my instincts versus somebody else's who's 19, 22, your mum, your granny, whoever.
Yeah.
But actually they're not you.
No.
You are you, and it's about knowing what you need, and not being frightened to ask for it, even if it's different to other people. So I think there is a thing about transition, is that, and it's the opposite of comparisonitis, isn't it? It's about going, yeah, I hear this, I've done my research, I've talked to people, but
Yeah.
actually I also need to trust myself,
Yeah.
trust my instinct. What's my gut telling me? And listen, because so often we override it only to find out that your gut was right. Trust your
Yeah.
gut.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the anticipation is often worse than the actual event, isn't it? You know, that first day at big school, or at sixth form, or whatever it happens to be, applying to anything in life. The anticipation we feel beforehand is quite often much worse than the actual event. So what you've said there about trusting yourself, learning to do that is an important life skill, because that can really help you in that transition to believe that, okay, well, I may not know exactly what's coming, but I'm going to trust myself that I can deal with it, and I will just go with it and see what comes, and deal with it from there. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So what have you got for me then?
Well, so mine, as ever, we say we talk from anything from socks to, I can never remember what we say.
Socks to
Socks to
self-belief.
Yeah, there we go. Socks to self-belief. So this is more at the sock end of the
Ooh,
conversation.
love it. Okay.
So, and I'll explain why afterwards. But are you a sensible shoe person, or more of a quirky shoe person?
Ooh. Okay. Now that's an interesting one for me because of the size of my feet. So it's not always easy to perhaps reflect in my shoes what I would like to reflect in my shoes. So I suppose, as an example, I probably prefer the quirkier side in terms of, I like a bit of interest in a shoe, if that's possible. I do like Doc Martin boots in a bright or loud colour. My favourite pair of shoes probably is my zebra print shoes, zebra print pumps, which I absolutely love, because they go with anything, kind of thing. And I always feel good wearing them. But the issue is recreating that. I happened to find that pair of shoes in size 11, which is it's easier than it used to be, but still sometimes difficult. And they're starting to wear out. And I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do? Because what if I can't find something else that's interesting? But that said, you might also argue I'm a sensible shoe person in terms of the comfort. I like shoes that are comfortable. So when we're talking quirky footwear, I'd prefer it to be on the more comfortable side.
Quirky and comfortable.
Yes. So I very rarely wear heels, but then as a 6-footer, I don't need heels. So I'm fortunate in that. But I also just can't be doing with any of the aches and pains that might come from wearing heels, or worrying if I'm stable in them or not. So sensible comfort is definitely a priority. But if I can find that's also interesting and quirky, then that's heaven in terms of shoes.
So that's a real plea out there. So if there's any shoe manufacturers listening or any clothing manufacturers, because I think quite often people, you make such a good point that people often want to reflect their personality
Yeah,
in what they wear. And quite often it can be really tricky to be able to do that if the clothing manufacturers and the shoe manufacturers are a bit kind of middle of the road or
yeah,
not catering for different sizes, different shapes, different heights. All of those things are really important, aren't they? And I get from a commercial point of view, there's a kind of, the midway being,
yeah,
but actually there needs to be much more of an opportunity, I think, for people to be able to reflect who they are
yeah,
in what they wear on their feet or what they put on their bodies. Or we've seen it with glasses, haven't we?
yeah,
Glasses, hairstyles. There's so much more availability for us to demonstrate or reflect who we are in our person and our personality by the way that we present in our clothes and our shoes. And I shall be keeping my eye out now for certain pubs for you.
Awesome. So, what's your preference when it comes to shoes then?
Well, like I am the opposite end of the scale. As when we're sitting, one of the advantages of doing this as we do it is that obviously you can't tell that Rachel is 6 foot and I'm the other end. I'm the kind of 5'4" end of the scale. So we are very different in height, and so I have always loved shoes, and I think the reason that it came to mind. Was that I've been writing a piece as part of a program called Beyond the Mirror. So
Yes.
it's about, as you can imagine. And one of the things was that when I was little, I had really wide feet, and so
Yeah.
I could never get shoes to fit. So I used to have to order my shoes from a choice of one in a yellow pamphlet with from a black and white line drawing. So it took
Yeah.
all the joy out of shoes. So you had a choice of one, and they were definitely at the sensible range.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I blame that experience
Mm.
on having beautiful feet that are very, well balanced and lovely. But I grew to absolutely want fabulously quirky, high-heeled flowers, buttons,
Yeah.
funky, different. So I'm always on the lookout. So that was why they came to mind. We just had a message from Karen saying she likes my short hair. Thank you, Karen. I really
Oh, lovely.
appreciate it. But yes, it comes back down to that choice, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
sometimes the way that we have our experiences as children lead us to make wild choices. And at the moment, I'm packing my shoes because I'm moving house.
Of
So I'm
course.
I'm I'm clearing out my shoe cupboard and looking at some of them, going, "Oh, I don't think I will wear those anymore." Back to the comfort bit. Gosh, they're very high. I would
Yeah.
have worn them 10 years ago, but maybe not so much now. So who knows?
Yeah. Love it. Well, good luck with packing all of the shoes.
Thank you.
I have to admit, I don't have tons of shoes, probably because of the size 11 issue. But when I tend to have a few pairs that I love and will wear to death and will wear with anything, kind of thing. So yeah, but I think I need to be on the lookout for some more, judging by what's going on with my zebra print shoes at the moment.
And I
So,
have far too many.
God bless you.
So
So we're at
moving
the
swiftly on.
opposite end of that spectrum as well, then.
Yes.
See, we're not the same person. Everyone gets, you're the same person. You always think the same things. No, we're not. We're
We're not
individual people.
Yeah.
Fun. Okay, so my next question is kind of inspired by the PeakeFest event that we both went to a couple. Can you believe it's a couple of weeks ago now?
I know.
Yeah, 2 weeks tomorrow. And obviously, I mean, it was lovely being in the same room, wasn't it? And I'd gone to the event not really knowing what to expect, really, other than I knew it was about visibility, and I knew that there were lots of people going, like yourself, that I know and trust. And if you say it's good, then I believe it, kind of thing. So I bought a ticket. And there were some things that really blew me away. And I'm just interested to know, obviously, kind of the whole visibility concept. What does it mean to you to be visible in your business? What does that look like, and why? Kind of, I'm interested in what's behind it.
Oh, there's a really simple answer, isn't there? And there's a more complicated one. So I'll try and go for the mid range. So or both. The most obvious is that people buy from people.
Yeah.
And as you said, I knew you were going. You said it was good. I trust you. I know you, and therefore, if you tell me something's good, then I tend to believe you.
Yeah.
And that's the same with anything, isn't it? If some random stranger rings you up on an 0800 number and says they'd like to sell you, I don't know, double glazing, or I had somebody this morning who said they'd like me to become a TikTok influencer, which I thought was hilarious, given that I am branching out into TikTok, but I've done about 5 videos, I think.
Yeah.
So really, it's like, really? So there is the visibility, is there's the know, like, and trust, because we, particularly I think, when, like we do, we're selling services that are very people focused.
Yes.
So one size of coach, one type of coach doesn't fit everybody. You need different types of coaches at different points in your lives. So it's really that connection, that relationship, that understanding of what somebody does, not just what they do, but how they do it, I think is really important.
Yeah.
I think it is easier to be visible, sort of, with social media. But then there's also that assumption, isn't it, that if you've done a post on social media, everybody who needs to see it will have done so the first time you posted it. And of course, so I think, everybody knows who I am. And then I meet people and they go, no idea who you are. So I think there's that. For me, visibility is both a joy and a curse, because it is relentless. It is, and if you're somebody who wants to, I don't just want to post pictures of my lunch most of the time, because my lunch isn't very interesting. But also because you want to give value, you want to help, do something useful, not just kind of show up. I think it's tricky. So visibility means, for me, being people understanding who I am, what I stand for, not just what I do, but how I do it. And also, it's going to make me smile because it kind of links randomly to my second question. So those things about when you get involved with things, when you don't, what matters to you, and those. But also, I think people in this world that we live in, that is full of, plastic bits and AI, and I love AI. I think it has its place, but there are also there's some issues, aren't there? So, or things to consider. So I think it's about who people are, who they are really, and it's very easy to get sucked into that. I'm all successful. I never have a bad day. My life is just peachy. Look at me, how fabulous I am. That kind of thing, and that's not. Well, it's not who I am. I have loads of days, as we know, loads of days when things don't go quite as I had planned, or I didn't get what I wanted to do done, all of those things. So I think it's about being real, and being human, being humane, being curious, being compassionate, all of those things. And it's also damn hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd echo all of that. I think, excuse me, obviously it's, goes without saying for most of us that we want people to know, like, and trust us, and be visible in that way, as you've said. One of the really important realizations that happened for me at PeakeFest was about it's okay being visible, but like you've just alluded to, are people seeing the real version of you? That the word authentic gets used a lot, but are they seeing the authentic version? And I think, in recent years, I've tried really hard to be vulnerable, to share things about, whether it's about my breakdown or when my self-belief was on the floor, those things that are very real and had a huge, negative impact at the time, because I know there are so many people that will resonate with, because they've had similar experiences. But I think it's easy, so much of what we see on social media is curated. It's planned. It's all the good stuff, and you have to sit and think to yourself, okay, how much of what I'm actually seeing is real? So for every post someone's putting out there that says something wonderful that's going on, how many things are going on behind the scenes that perhaps aren't quite so wonderful? So for me, the kind of a really important realization from that event is the importance of sharing those real things, that business doesn't always go the way we want it to. Like you've just said, we don't always get the things done that we need to. In my case, the juggle between family and young children and business is often really tricky, and I don't always get it right, if there is such a thing as right, which that's debatable in itself, but I don't always achieve the things I would like to achieve because of the things that are being balanced. And again, so many people, doesn't matter what their juggle looks like, doesn't matter whether it involves children the same as me or not, but if their life involves a juggle, then that might really help for them to see, oh well, she's struggling with that juggle as well. It's not just me. I'm not alone, which goes back to what we talked about before in the transitions. It's that knowledge that you're not navigating this alone. You're not the only one that feels that way. And I think that can make such a difference in validating your own feelings, that it's okay to feel like that. So my visibility now, in terms of the things I'm saying and the things I'm prepared to say, prepared to do, prepared to share, there's much more of an emphasis on making sure it's balanced with all of that reality in the mix as well, because I've never been one to just only share the good things, but I think also I maybe haven't been sharing enough of the realities as well. And it's really important to me for that, kind of the integrity and authenticity of what people see. If they come and search for you or I on any social media or internet in general, and what they find, I want what they find to be an accurate reflection of me, so that when they meet me face to face, they feel they're meeting the same person. And sometimes I've got all my SH1T in a sock, sometimes I haven't, and and that's okay. So yeah, it's I think it's actually quite, visibility can be quite complex, can't it? Because there's that standard baseline of build, know, like, trust, and people need to see what you're about and what you do and learn all those things. But there's so much more to it than that, and that was one of the things that just really hit home hard for me at PeakeFest. So big shout out for Nicola Peake. If you don't follow her already, she's awesome. Go and follow her, find her on all the socials, and have
get your tickets.
Exactly, get your tickets next year, which we already have, haven't we? And it's I think it's that in itself, I suppose, was also a way of being visible, wasn't it? Putting yourself out there. In my case, to go to an event that I didn't really know lots about, but I'd heard enough to know it sparked my curiosity, and I want to be in that room, and I'm so glad I did. So yeah, I guess the message, folks, is be visible, and don't be afraid to be visible, even when it's messy, because it's real and people appreciate that.
One of the things I love, and we need to reiterate really clearly that Rachel and I do not collaborate in any way, shape, or form on the questions that we prepare for these shows. We do them completely separately. They are a
Yep.
complete surprise. And what so often happens, I think it's the universe has got our backs, is that they dovetail beautifully, completely
Yeah.
accidentally from our perspective. So my next question um, was, because I haven't asked it you yet, when do you happily jump on the bandwagon, and when do you say stay purposefully off it?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. And I think very topical, given some of the things that are going on in the media. I think I perhaps choose fairly carefully whether to jump on a bandwagon or not. Um, you know, things around justice or injustice in particular, because of that being a core value, that does make me far more likely to want to jump on the bandwagon and stand as an ally, stand with people who are being marginalized, or treated unjustly. But I'm not someone that automatically jumps on every bandwagon. And I would use the Coldplay concert as the prime example. I mean, that's just exploded, hasn't it? So much negative press, and I've followed it, but not got involved in any way. Deliberately chosen not to, and partly that's because some of the coverage I've seen has been all about the woman involved and how she is an HR director, HR manager, HR something, and somehow that has transpired into lots of HR directors receiving lots of hate, and people lumping them all together and suggesting there is something wrong with HR directors. Now, how on earth did we get to that from someone, two people who consciously made a choice, rightly or wrongly, but they made that choice, and they have to live with that. But the hate that then comes from it, I don't want to give that kind of thing any airtime, and make the algorithms send it even further, because it's just awful to see the negative impact that can have. I mean, when you think about those two people, say what you like about the choices they've made, and I feel very strongly about the choices they've made and that they were the wrong choices. However, I'm not them, so it's not really for me to say. My opinion doesn't not matter to them, nor should it. But to be so publicly torn apart, and at the same time, it doesn't really look like the man. He released a statement, didn't he? But it didn't look like he took much accountability for anything. Yet she's the one that's being kind of lambasted the most. And I just think we need to be really careful with bandwagons, particularly when it's an issue that is going to blow up in the media, because the media can be wonderful. It can also be utterly horrendous, and how much you have to wonder how much one person can take in terms of the personal attacks that then come on them, and what's that going to do to their psyche, to their mental health. It's I do think it's worth choosing carefully in terms of whether you jump on a bandwagon or not. So that's a very, very long-winded way of saying that I choose carefully, and I won't necessarily pounce straight away. I prefer to maybe sit back for a day or two, soak up what's going on, and then get involved, because I want to be sure that my thought process does align with me and my values before I put it out there, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that the problem is, I think that the statements aren't generated. They have been generated by other people, not from the people themselves, as ever. So there's a whole load of there's a whole load of information out there that is anything but accurate. I think what fascinated me was the almost the gleeful destruction of human beings' lives very publicly, and with little thought for the collateral damage of the other people who weren't seen but who are involved in that, with no thought whatsoever. And my only tiptoeing, leaning into the bandwagon, was to ask people not to circulate the picture. It's like every time you do that, it's like you're rubbing people's noses in it. Please don't do that, because you might be making a point, and it is, I, like you, I'm very careful, and my immediate thought was, gosh, if only people would get so involved with things that really matter. Really big world problems, poverty, all sorts of really big issues, that when somebody posts about that, it's like tumbleweed. And yet something like this just exploded, as you said. So yes, there are bandwagons and there are bandwagons, aren't there? And I think being really clear, and it's really getting increasingly difficult to ascertain what's actually factual and what's noise. So I'm like you. I'm very, very choosy, and there are often times when I think, shall I say something? And then I think, no, bide your time. And quite often, what I was going to comment about turns out to be not accurate. So it was worth keeping my wise counsel. Sometimes, but also it's that balance, isn't it, between what happens when good people stand by and do nothing. So that it's again another tricky thing. Visibility and bandwagons. There's a lot of tricky transitions. It's tricky this day.
Maybe that's today's theme. Tricky things.
Tricky things. Yeah.
Oh dear.
So your last question.
So my last question, I went a bit more at the sock end for my last question. And interesting, I am just going to interject here and say hi if she does, or if any of them end up listening. But my eldest, she's just been on expedition in Romania with school, and they were talking about our podcast. And apparently they listened to some of it while they were there. I was like, oh, how exciting. And
what wise young people they are.
I know. And they decided to start one of their own. I think they only did about 2 video recordings while they were there. They kind of planned to do one each day kind of thing. I don't think they kept up with it because, when you're trekking in mountains and working in a bear sanctuary, it's not very easy to really do that. But I was just quite inspired to hear that the things we have to say can be important to any age, but B, that it might inspire other people to have a go. So I just thought I'd share that here because that's really nice.
Yeah, inspiring.
So my final question, have you got any top tips for encouraging laughter? And I ask this because I think laughter and fun are really, really, really important. And I've met some fascinating people in my time in business who do laughter yoga, and I've attended a session, and the whole concept that even if you're not finding something funny, the concept of laughing anyway in terms of laughter yoga can still be just as powerful. And what you often will then find is that you're all doing this fake laughter in a laughter yoga session, but actually it then more than likely will turn into real laughter, and that shared experience is actually quite special, and it's really fun. So yeah, that's kind of the basis of my question, because I think laughter and fun are things that do us really, really well. We all know the positive physiological effects of fun and laughter, but I'm interested in your top tips.
Well, obviously, people's sense of humours are very different, aren't they? So there's
Yeah.
again, there's a huge range of what some people find funny and other people don't. I personally love a terrible dad joke. I love terrible jokes, puns, anything like that. They always make me smile. One of my top tips, which is slightly unusual, is that and it happens every time. I have been to a spa where I've gone with a group of friends,
Yeah.
and the paper knickers have been given out, because I don't know what it is about spa paper knickers, but they are quite tricky to navigate, and they always end up causing huge hilarity in a time when you're supposed to be being very zen and very
Yeah.
calm, and they just make you giggle. And I think so. My top tip would be to go on a spa, and have a giggle about the knickers. And if anybody has got any top tips for actually making them work, as a pair of knickers, because they're hilarious. I don't know who designed them. So that would be a top tip. Um, I'm also one of those people who loves watching those videos of people falling over. I know that's really, is that me? You know, when people fall off things or trip down steps, or
Yeah.
I don't want them to hurt themselves in any way, shape, or form, but I do think it's funny, mostly because it's happened. We can all identify, back to that thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can all identify with things when you've, fallen down, fallen over, tripped over, fallen backwards,
Yeah.
whatever
Made
it
a
is,
fool of
spilt
yourself.
your
Yeah.
drink, all of those things. Just make you laugh. And I also love those really silly memes that go around, where there's ducks talking, and calling out people's names and things. Just silly, harmless kind of fun, really, is always a good thing. And also the other thing that fills me often with laughter is being in the company of toddlers. I'm
Yes.
fortunate enough to have young grandchildren, and they are absolutely hilarious. They are
Yeah.
so funny. The things they come out with, the way that they see the world, is just brilliant. So yeah, paper knickers, toddlers, and dodgy jokes are my three top tips.
Excellent. Well, I might have to run out and get myself some paper knickers then, just to cause a bit of hilarity.
Go
Having
to
two
the
daughters,
spa
that
because
would
they've
be,
got them. Yeah, go to the spa because they've got
yeah,
them already, and then you can have the massage that goes with it.
excellent. Um, I mean, I have to admit, I love a good laugh. I'm a sucker for toilet humour. Anything to do with poo, farting, any of that, I just find that ridiculously funny. I remember once, probably should be embarrassed to admit this, but full disclosure, visibility and all that, realness. I once downloaded an app on my phone that was basically fart noises, and just sat there for 10 minutes in front of my husband and kids, just crying with laughter at all these silly fart noises. But yeah, there's just something about toilet humor that
Simple
really,
pleasures.
yeah, definitely simple pleasures. Another thing is, finding those. I suppose it's finding those things that are going to make you laugh, isn't it? So I really like some of the what might be considered today to be the more old-fashioned physical comedy, slapstick, that kind of thing. So the Goes Wrong show, which there's obviously the play that goes wrong in the West End, and they've done a whole,
Brilliant.
yeah,
Absolutely brilliant.
absolutely incredible. And it's something that we do as a family, the four of us, because we can watch a lot of it on the TV. They did some amazing shows in lockdown because they couldn't do face-to-face things, and so it's something. The Goes Wrong show in general is something that we've always shared as a family. Well, they're one of the TV shows that they did. They're now going to do a stage production of,
Why?
and Darren sent me a message the other day, and it was just the link to the show, like a post about it on Facebook or something. It said, "We have to go and see this!" Like big capital letters. We have to go and see this. And I, apart from anything, I love the fact that it's something that we can share. That's funny. It's not just me finding something funny and enjoying it by myself. That shared enjoyment, when you can all laugh together, is so powerful. So I guess it's finding something that you can laugh with friends, family about. And I'm same as you. I'm also a fan of babies and toddlers who do cute and funny things. And I have to admit, my Instagram feed generally tends to be filled with babies and toddlers doing silly things, quite often with their pets, with cats and dogs, and then also with pandas. Now, I don't know if you've ever.
There's some great panda videos, aren't they? Parenting pandas.
I think for me, the pandas, they fall into that slapstick physical comedy sort of area, because how they're not extinct, I don't know. Some of the silly things they do, falling off from great heights and just kind of bouncing, and whatever it might be. If you don't know what I mean, and to anyone that's listening, go and have a look at just Google silly panda videos, and they are the cutest creatures and the very silliest and clumsiest creatures. So very much something to laugh about. But I suppose in essence, it's about finding what does make you laugh and planning more of it into your life, because we can easily go from day to day, week to week, month to month, busy doing the do, kind of grinding ourselves into the ground, doing balancing all the things that we need to balance. And so it's seeking those opportunities to be able to laugh, and working out what that is for you. So yeah, hopefully lots of good tips there for anyone listening. And of course, we'd love to know if you've got any particular tips that you can share with us in terms of finding fun and laughter. So yeah.
So my last question, better be quick. We've talked a lot today, haven't we?
Oh gosh,
is obviously, the summer is upon us, and I was reading a thing the other day about the National Trust having to make lots of people redundant because people aren't they're not visiting as often, because it's seen as probably a bit boring, a bit traditional. So my question is, what's your favorite thing to do, outing to go on when you go out for the summer? Are you a National Trust member? Do you love the National Trust? Is it something you go, yeah, well, we save it for rainy days, or I always mean to but never quite get there? Or what's your favorite place to go when you're going on summer outings?
Ooh, interesting. I mean, we are National Trust members, and we do like going and visiting National Trust places. This does make me think that we probably don't use our membership enough. So that's inspired me that maybe that's something we ought to think about a bit more for this summer. But I think all sorts, but anything that's outdoors. Really like being outdoors, whether that's in the energy of the sun, or just being in the fresh air. I think any activity that you can do that involves some fresh air and getting out of the house and getting away from screens has to be a good thing. We're this summer, well, next month, in fact, can't believe summer's already here. We're off to PGL in Paris, which isn't like PGLs as we know and love them in the UK. It's not filled with water sports and climbing and zip wires and all that kind of thing. It's not that kind of place. But what they have got is huge grounds, and huge, beautiful grounds that you can kind of get lost in. So really looking forward to spending some outdoor time in a really nice place there. And I think for me, days by the beach, paddling in the sea or swimming in the sea if you're so taken, and sand between your toes, fish and chips on the beach with sand in it, or sandwiches with sand in it. That I think I always feel very at home by the sea and by water. So beach days are probably my favorite thing to do. And we're sort of an hour or so from the coast here, so we're not too far. But yeah, I think outdoors would be the theme, because being in nature and fresh air is just good for the soul.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I'm more of a freshwater water person than the sea. But yes, that kind of being outside. I love nice gardens. I don't want to do any gardening, but I love walking around nice gardens. The National Trust has so many beautiful gardens, doesn't it? As well as houses.
Yes.
They have all sorts of things, and they usually have a very nice cafe. So I am
Yes.
partial to a piece of cake.
The cake is always good.
Going out. Cake is always good, isn't it? So yes, that kind of being outside, being in the fresh air with people, with other people, gardens, ponds, lakes, rivers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it sounds like we'll both be getting out and about. And if anybody wants to share any favourite places that they've been or that they're going to, then please get in touch. You know, we love it when you get in touch with us and tell us where you're off to, what you're doing, what you're up to. That will be brilliant. But I think we have overrun a bit. Sorry.
We have. Could this be our longest show to date? Maybe. Who knows?
It might be. So apologies for going on. We were going on. We're going to stop now.
Yeah, we are going to stop.
Say goodbye, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
We will indeed, and as always, stay brilliant, stay inspiring, and if you want to get involved and be a guest on the show, then get in touch with us about that as well, because we're always looking for inspiring and brilliant guests. So in the meantime, take care, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.